Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Let's get started. So today we're going to be talking. So last week I said it was kind of like an important moment in, I guess, your learning in Rails, and today is also another important moment because today we're going to be taking an idea, a concept, and turning it into an application using Rails. Okay, so this is kind of like where everything that you learn comes together. And this is, so I encourage you guys to pay a little bit of attention here because you guys will have to do something very similar to this for your final project, okay, so project 2. So, show of hands, how far are you guys for project 1? Just show me a fist. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, sounds good. That's fine, that's fine. You guys still have a. So just to clarify that project 1 is due next Friday. Okay, so you guys still have a week. Friday after that, we'll be releasing project 2. I kind of gave away my logistics slide, but that's okay. All right. So at this point in the course, it feels like it's been a whirlwind of material and things and concepts and magic lines of code. But really, you guys have learned quite a bit. You guys have learned how to make static pages. Okay, so how to take simple HTML and have it show up when you run Rails server. How to make models which represent the connection to a database. Migrations, which allow you to change the schema of the database. Seeding a database, controllers, and views. Okay, so you guys know quite a bit at this point. And I love questions. So think about this one for 2 minutes to yourself. Just think to yourself, which route will allow me to visit this URL? All right. So when you're ready, show me a fist. So don't show me your answer. Just show me a fist when you're ready. And when I count to 3, we'll all show our answers at the same time. All right. 1, 2, 3. Talk it over with your neighbor. All right. And when you think you have an answer, show me a fist again. All right. 1, 2, 3. Show me. A lot of 4s, a couple 2s. All right. Let's talk. Let's talk. Oops. And I think I will just show you guys. I'll just show you guys what happens. So let's see. If I can go back to master. Break routes should not do anything. So here I have an empty routes file. Break routes tells me, can you guys see that? Is that visible to you guys in the back? Can you guys see that? Kind of. What about now? Yes, maybe. Okay. And for Sublime, sorry, I can do this like every time. All right. Is that visible? Okay, cool. All right, so let's try. Oh gosh, it's still going. Oh no. Oh, gosh. We'll stop one of these days. Okay, let's come back down. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. Okay, all right, so our first choice there was get obtained to item slash obtain. Let's see what happens when I add this to my routes. So I'm going to save that and then rate routes. And now this is incorrect. Why? So take a look at what I got out of my routes. Maybe if I do this. All right, so this is a route that I added. Oops. And this is the route that I get. What was I trying to get? I was trying to get item slash one slash obtain, right? So why is this? Why is the first choice incorrect? Any takers? None of you guys put one, so you guys have a reason for not putting one, right? No one? What do you think?
I saw it because we want out of one
That's right. So when I say get obtain, this is like sort of right, except the get obtain part is incorrect, right? So this will allow me to hit slash obtain, but not slash item slash one slash obtain. Okay? So if you look at my routes.rb, what did I get? Oh, sorry. Okay. So I can go to slash obtain. Now one interesting fact about the way I wrote this route is when you write items slash obtain, what Rails expects is that you have an obtain controller inside of an items folder, right? Because the slash to Rails means folder. Okay, so this here says, I'm going to look for the obtain method in my obtain controller, which is also incorrect. So there's a lot of things wrong with that answer. All right, so what about number 2? Get ID obtain to obtain. A lot of you guys wrote that. All of you guys raised your hand and said 2. Because someone defend their answer. Why did you put number 2? All right, who raised their hands for number 2? Who raised your hands? Be honest. Y'all are lying. All right, what did you think? Why did you choose 2?
Because it's the only thing that has ID.
It's the only thing that has ID. Very valid. Anyone else? What do you think? So you say, since this is within my resources items, I should already have the items in my URL. Okay, also very valid. Anyone else? Okay, let's try it out. So this will also be an exercise on how to decipher the routes, okay? So what happened? Oh, okay, well that's not very helpful. I got a huge error. Let's see. Missing action key on routes definition. Please check your routes. Okay, so essentially what happened, oh, whoops, I forgot this. My bad. Although I think we'll still get it. Might still get an error. Yep, all right. Now, if I scroll past this wall of text here, is this all one thing? Oh, gosh. All right, missing action key and route definition. Okay, so essentially, it looks like it could be okay, but the syntax here is actually incorrect. So I believe if I do that, actually, I don't know about this. Yeah, this one's broken too. So essentially the problem with this route is that when you do get, so the problem with doing get within resources is that the controller expects you to, basically the controller, like the resources items already include, like already thinks that you're going to be using an ID. So if I wrote get obtain, I believe this should work. Crossing my fingers here. That's right. So you notice here, so these routes right here are the routes that were defined by resources items, right? So if I did not have anything in here, if I commented that one out, I would get those routes right there. The index grade and show up these, okay? But when you write get something within resources, Rails is assuming, Rails kind of makes the assumption that you're like writing this route and then it's going to put the ID for you. So when you write /ID, like :ID/obtain, it says, okay, like /item/item ID/obtain, and then it doesn't know what to do because that ID is weird. Okay. Now, the third choice I'm going to skip for now because it's the correct answer. The fourth choice, the fourth choice is incorrect as well. A lot of you guys put 4. Someone explain. Why did you originally pick 4?
It's the only one that I saw.
Sorry, what was that?
I said it was the only one that put up to me.
That's right. So our friend here says it's the only one that looks like it matches the right URL to the right controller and to the right action. Now, in most other circumstances, this would be the right answer. But the problem here is, again, this resources block that's surrounding this line of code. So if I put this line outside, so again, the resources, so when you write resources do, there are only so many things that you can actually write inside of that block. But when you're outside of this block, you can write basically whatever you want. So if I wrote this line of code outside of the resources block and run rake routes, and I can get rid of this one since we don't need it. So this is what we want. And this was defined, actually, sorry, that was from that was from this line before. So the line at the bottom here is a route that we defined using that URL, using that line of code. So can you guys all see that in the back? So here at the bottom, item/1/obtain, and it goes to the obtain method of the item controller. So this is all right. The only thing here is that our route is named kind of weirdly, like items_1_obtain. And that's because we hard-coded this ID. When we wrote in the route item/1/obtain, Rails tries to make a route name for us, and that messes up a lot of things. So let's talk about this. So to clarify, what you're seeing here when I run rake routes, all the stuff in the middle here, the URI patterns, I wonder if I can, there we go. So all the stuff in the middle right here, these are the actual URLs that you can hit in your browser, okay? All the stuff on this side in the right-hand column, that says when you hit this URL, I'm going to run this method. So when I hit the /items in my browser, I'm going to go to the items controller index action. So that's what you're seeing here exactly. So rake routes tells you exactly which URLs go to which pieces of code, which controller and which action within this controller. Now, The thing on the right here is called the route prefix, okay? So this is how we refer to routes within Rails. So what if I run Rails C? Do you notice how sometimes in a lot of controllers we write stuff like, so this is not a controller, but we write stuff like redirect to like items underscore path, or we redirect to like item path of like some item. So this pattern seems kind of familiar, and where this name comes from. So this is Rails. So Rails will translate this into an actual like URL string. It'll translate this into /item/id. Where that comes from is also here. So here you can see exactly which methods you can use to get routes. To show that to you, I opened up a console. If I do app dot, and I can take any route here, so items path, this will give me back the URL, okay? So here, so everything on the right, on the left-hand side over here, you can write Rails, and Rails will translate this into a URL. Every URL in the middle will get translated into a controller connection. So this is what you're seeing exactly. So let me explain why the third answer is. This one, very few of you guys wrote. Now, I don't think we covered this in depth so far in this class, but writing, so this is called a member route. Okay, so a member route, we say a member route defines an action on one particular item. So here I'm saying on one particular item I can obtain it. So when I run rake routes, so here, this route got defined for me when I wrote member. So there are two kind of special constructs that you can use within the resources block. Okay, so one is called member and the other is called collection. So if I wrote collection do get specials. So when I run rake routes again, I define some more routes. Okay, so a collection basically means so the idea behind the member and collection routes is that a collection route means when I write stuff inside, that means do stuff on all the items or multiple items. A member route semantically means do something on one item. So here, when I wrote get obtain, semantically, I'm trying to like do some action on one particular item. I'm trying to obtain an item. Oops. And that's why in the URL, we have the ID. So this ID basically means some item, some specific item with some specific ID, I'm going to obtain it. And the prefix is called obtain item. Now, when I wrote collection, notice here that there is no ID in my URL. Right? So that semantically in English, like the way you think about it, is that I'm doing something with multiple items or all of my items at once. So in this case, I could be saying, get all the items that are special. All right. I have another one for you. Think about this one. And to clarify, all of these lines are written in routes.rb. Without the correct line of code, we'll have an error when we try to render this form. And with the correct line of code, the form will render correctly. So it's not a trick question. There's one right answer. All right. If you don't know, it's okay. Take a guess. Getting an answer wrong is how you learn. All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So my hint to you is, okay, so another assumption I'm making here is that without the form at all, okay, so when I don't have the form at all, I can go to Pokemon/new. So the page itself, the controller itself is okay. I can do Pokemon/new. When I add in this form, there's a route that I need in order for this form to render correctly. And my hint to you is that think about think about where the route goes to. So this creates a form. Where does the form go to? What URL does the form hit? Talk it over with your neighbor. So as just names the route. So if I wrote as Pokemons, that means Pokemons underscore path. I'll explain it again when I go over the answer. No, it's not. Well, actually, yes. But don't worry about it for this particular question. So my hint, again, think about which route we need. Think about when you submit the form, which route the form needs to go. Which route the form needs to hit. All right, so we're a little bit pressed for time. Try one more time. Give it another shot. Show me your fists. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, so I'm going to cut to the chase here, and the correct answer is 1. So congratulations to everyone who put 1. So let's talk. So why? So first of all, I said in the beginning that you need a particular route to exist for this form not to error when I write it, right? The reason for that is because when I write simple form when I try to make a form for a particular model, right? So here, this is a new Pokemon I wrote in my controller, and now this is a new Pokemon. Now, the reason why the form needs a particular route in order to work properly is because simple form for is shorthand for this. All right? So what happens is, so let's take a look. So let me break out of here just for a sec. And let's take a look at this. So here in my code, I wrote, right. So let's go to /new. All right. So this is slightly different than what you've seen before, but the important part is that, so this is just the Ruby code that I wrote, the Sim code that I wrote. Now, when I go to the browser, it creates this form. So this is what we're going to be getting to at the end of lecture today. I'm cutting to a chase a little bit, but I want to talk specifically about the form that we create. So let's take a look at this HTML. Okay, so when I write simple form for, in my HTML, this is what gets created. Sorry, that's kind of hard to see. Can I make this bigger? Did that work? Oh, nice. Great. Okay. Now, this stuff is not important. Class is not important. ID is not important. But action. So the action. So this is just HTML, right? This is what my browser sees. But when my browser sees that my form HTML tag has an action attribute, it knows that when I hit submit, it's going to make a request to that URL. Okay, so when I hit submit, we're going to go to user/1/quits. And the method post refers to the HTTP method. Okay, so again, to reiterate, when I say get to a server, the server says, oh, I'm going to give him some information. Like, I get the home page, I get the new page. When I say post, I'm telling the server, so semantically, again, like the meaning behind the post is that I'm saying, here's some data, do something with it. And when I say patch, so post and patch are pretty interchangeable, but most of the time we'll say post to create something new, and we'll say patch to change something that already exists, okay? So what happens, so let's go back, oops, let's go back here. Now, because Pokemon, I said Pokemon was Pokemon.new, so this is, we have a new Pokemon, right? Rails says, okay, if it's a new Pokemon, we're going to be creating the Pokemon, right? And that's why the first one is correct, more or less. So to be very clear, when I render that form, right, simple form will look into this Pokemon and say, this is a new Pokemon. If it's a new Pokemon, I should go to the create path for the Pokemon when the form is submitted. And what I've done here is instead of writing resources, so when you write resources Pokemons, right, you define all 7 routes, new, create, etc., etc., etc. But you define both new and create, okay? And this line of code recreates that create path. So to be clear, let's go to Sublime. That's not helpful. So here, when I write resources, Pokemons, this defines 7 routes for me. Right? We have all 7. This is familiar. But really, I can define all 7 manually, right? So instead of writing resources, I can take that first guy over here, get Pokemons, and just write get Pokemons, and oops, sorry, to the Pokemon's controller, the index action, and we're going to call it the Pokemon's path. And this line of code is exactly equivalent to this line, to this route here. I can do the same thing for all 7 routes, right? But resource Pokemon is just a shorthand for something you can already do. You already know how to do this. Now, the reason why the form breaks without it is because you see this create Pokemon's the create action. This is called the Pokemon's path, but we hit it using a post action. So when simple form for it gets a new Pokemon, it says, okay, I'm going to go to this URL because I'm going to expect that this URL exists. So without it, it breaks. Without this path, the form doesn't know what to do because it doesn't know where to send you, when to send the data to. Now, if Pokemon were not a new Pokemon, if I wrote Pokemon so instead I wrote Pokemon equals Pokemon.find, say some ID like 2, so this is an existing Pokemon, that's when, so I don't have the correct route here in the choices, but the simple form for will look for this route, will look for the update instead of the create, okay? So this is what's going on behind the scenes. So let's go over what exactly happens when I visit this page. So I go to /Pokemons/new. Rails says, great, this is this URL, so I'm going to go to the Pokemon's new action in my controller. Yeah. Sorry, what? So are patch and put synonymous? And the answer is yes for the most part. Yeah.
I noticed that you talking about Pokemon's path, right? Is that already defined by itself, or do we define it without?
Right. So the question was, we had a Pokemon's path. Where did that Pokemon's path come from? The answer is when I define a route. So you notice here, oops, when I write this as defines the name of the route for me. So when I wrote as Pokemons, this says define Pokemon's _path. If I wrote Pokemon's hello, this would create Pokemon's underscore hello underscore path. So the as creates the naming within Ruby.
So whenever you get underscore path,
Right, so whenever you have a prefix here, any prefix here you can add underscore path to and then use it inside of a controller. So you can say redirect to Pokemon path or redirect to edit Pokemon path. Okay, now, oops, this is not helpful. All right, so I go to /Pokemon/new. I go to the Pokemon's new action. Now I render it, so I say add Pokemon equals Pokemon.new. Now the HTML renders. So the HTML renders this form. When this form renders, I create this, let me see. I create this form in my HTML. And if I put stuff in here and hit the submit button, Rails will take the stuff in my form and make a request to my server, make a post to my server. It'll make a post to my server on this URL. And because it makes a post instead of a get, my server will know to go to the create action to create a Pokemon. So that's in detail what exactly happens when I make a form and then submit it. Okay? Now, all right, so let's keep going. So now we're going to turn an idea, sorry. Sorry, what was that?
The question is which Scramble allows from
So the wording of the question is a little bit tricky. So the question is not which will allow the page Pokemon/new to render, but rather which will allow the form inside of the page to render. So yes, like if I did not have a Pokemon/new, I would never be able to go to the Pokemon/new. But if I didn't have the first choice here, I would never, the form itself would error.
Oh, I see.
That's right. So when the form sees that the route doesn't exist, it'll error, unless you tell it otherwise. So you can say exactly which route you want the form to go to if you want to make it customized. By default, it'll do this, the Pokemon's path. Yeah.
when you say something only for average Pokemon, whatever average levels that's going to get passed as a parameter to
Right, so the question was, when I do simple form will this automatically throw Pokemon inside this path? And the answer is yes. So it will do this. And so to clarify, if I did, yeah, actually I don't have, but the app I'm working with doesn't have Pokemon, so I won't be able to show you. But I can show you when we start looking at the app. Okay. So now we're going to turn an idea into an app. And next week we're going to talk about working in teams, and we're going to expand upon the app that we built today. And that will prepare you, hopefully, to get started working in teams of 3 and 4 for your final project in this class. All right? So let's talk. So I want an app called Quitter. All right? And Quitter is an app somewhat like Twitter, but for people who quit things. All right? So for example, me and my friends might go on Twitter and we might say like, oh, I quit Twitter, or I quit, I don't know, I quit soda, or I quit procrastinating, right? And so that's the idea that I want. And I think it's the next best, I think this is the next big hit, and I really want to create this right away, right? So here are the main features of this app. Okay, so people can post about what they're quitting. And so admins will moderate posts to make sure they're appropriate. This is something we'll get to next time. But today we're focusing on number 1. We'll have people in the app. The people can post quits about what they're quitting. All right? All right. So what do we need? Talk it over with your neighbor. What do you think are the parts that we need in an app like this? Think in terms of Rails. We'll say for this app that every quit is associated with a person. So talk it over with your neighbor. What do we need? What do we need in this for this app to exist? All right. All right. Any ideas? What are some essential parts of this that I'll have to do? Yeah. Models for quits and users. Great. Anything else? What else do I need? I have models, and they'll allow me to do some stuff, but obviously not the whole thing. What else? Anything else? Forms to create quits, yes. Okay, so that was kind of cheating because I already showed you what the end looked like. All right. One more thing. Yeah. Controllers to do the right things. Yeah, so you guys are kind of listed the parts of the Rails application. Great. But so usually when you think about an idea, it is easiest to think about the models first. Like what kind of data do I need to store, right? And in this case, we're going to want a user model, as we mentioned before, and we're going to want users to be able to log in so they can post quits. So we're going to need authentication, and we're going to go over how to do that today. It sounds familiar to you guys, or it might sound familiar if you guys have looked at Project 1. Because we've used authentication in Project 1. Users have to log in to capture Pokemon, all right? And a user will have many quits. So a quit is just a bunch of text, right? And it belongs to a user. All right. So this is so we're going to go through a couple steps here to kind of create this app, all right? And so we're going to start with the models. We're going to add authentication using device to gen. And we're going to do validations and associations. And that will become the first half of our app. So let's dive in. Oh, but before that, let me show you what it looks like in the end. So when this is done, when the app is finished, this is what it'll look like. So I have some users, right? And the users have some quits. So I will say, so I quit smoking before. Let's say I quit Twitter. All right, and create, and bam, there it is. I quit Twitter. All right. Cool. So that's essentially what we're trying to do in this app. All right. So we're going to start from nothing. So here I have an app that is. Go back to the end. I'm going to start fresh. So no routes, no views. Look at my schema. I don't even have that schema file. Okay, so there's nothing in this app right now. So let's start and let's start by creating the models. So to create models, I run Rails G, and I want my user to have a name, and the name will be a string. Oops. Model. All right, Rails, and then I'm going to create a quit, and the quit will have, what did I say it has? Text. All right, so the text will be the text type in my database. All right, and I'm going to look in my migrate file. Here are my users. My users have a name. Here are my quits. My quits have text. This should all be pretty familiar to you guys by now, right? I'm just creating new models. So let's do that. So migrate to create them. All right. And in my schema says I have these two models. So pretty straightforward, nothing out of the ordinary. If I go to my user.rb file, I have this user. Now, I have a gem included in my gem file today called annotate. And annotate is kind of nice because I can run this command. And when I run this command, it'll annotate my models with their attributes inside of my database. So it's going to run, and after it's run, in my user file, I now have these things, and these things were not here before. Okay, so annotate just kind of gives me some documentation as to what the database behind the model looks like. Because normally, you just have this and it looks blank. And so it's kind of hard to tell what you can do. Yeah.
So would I need to use like ID or something like that now?
Sorry, what was that?
Instead of model, can you now use ID, name, or whatever else you want to use?
That's sort of right. So if I do Rails console and I pull up a console, I can actually go ahead and see what my user looks like. Right? My user has an ID and a name. If I wrote u equals user.new, I can do u.name equals send, right? And then I can save my model, and now that'll insert my model into the database. So if I do user.first, I'll get back the model that I just created. So I just created a model. So pretty vanilla, nothing super extraordinary. So let's keep moving. So now we want to create authentication. Now, doing authentication is pretty darn easy because of the gem called device. So look at the device gem. So essentially, I just blah, 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 blah. Getting started, this is what I want. So I want to toss this into my gem file to say that I'm going to be using this. Okay. I'm going to bundle install to get it ready. And then I just follow the instructions. So usually for gems, if they're well documented, they just have instructions on how to get set up. And I'm going to do that. So after I install the device, add to my gem file, and turn it generated. Okay, your wish is my command. There's that. And then it says, when you're all done, you're ready to add device to any of your models